Our last topic of the day that I want to talk about is StarCraft, guys. And the question of the day that I'm going to give you guys kind of my thoughts, and then I would love to hear yours, is who is the greatest StarCraft player of all time? The greatest StarCraft player ever to play. And when we talk about StarCraft, we're talking about it as a whole, right? We're talking about StarCraft, we're talking about StarCraft Brood War, we're talking about StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty, Heart of the Swarm, Legacy of the Void, all of it. When you look at all of the greats out there that have played StarCraft, that have played StarCraft 2, you can look at all of that. You can see, through the utter domination, the utter, the great comebacks, and all of those things kind of make up players. You got to look at the totality of everything, the win-loss ratios, obviously how many, championships do they have. And when we talk about championships, are we talking the biggest championships like the BlizzCons of the world? And now, of course, I Am Katowice, which is obviously going to be the world championship for StarCraft 2. Who is the greatest? And I think the way that we have to kind of put those things together is really by separating StarCraft from StarCraft 2. And that's kind of our first step in kind of coming up with who's the greatest ever. When I look at it, we'll start with StarCraft, guys. I'm going to give you 3 from StarCraft and then 4 from StarCraft 2. So the 3 from StarCraft, guys, that are the top of my list from what I've witnessed, from what I've experienced from StarCraft. And obviously I have a much longer history in StarCraft 2, but with StarCraft in particular, I'm looking at Flash, Jaedong, and Boxer. Those 3 absolutely incredible players, guys, winning multiple championships, just kind of the amount of time that they were able to go with just winning championships and just absolutely playing on another level, man. Like, these guys, I believe it's actually going to be really hard for any of the StarCraft 2 players to, even compare to these guys because of the amount of championships, the amount of wins, those win-loss ratios, even though there are certainly guys in StarCraft 2 that have very good win-loss ratios, but the amount of wins and championships that those 3 guys have won in StarCraft Brood War, absolutely unprecedented and just incredible. Like, very difficult to even compete with, right? And I would say out of those 3, when you look at all 3 of them and you look at the longevity, you look at just everything between those big 3, I call them the big 3, I'm looking at Flash as the greatest StarCraft player ever, as far as StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War. Now, Flash did try playing in StarCraft 2. I believe all 3 of them tried StarCraft 2 at some point or another, try competing in it, and I think all of them just realized that StarCraft 1 was their game and the one that they just wanted to continue building their legacy on, and so that's what they did. And it's probably a good idea because Flash has won multiple championships, Jaedong, same thing, and Boxer, same thing. It comes down to championships, guys, in a huge way, but it also just comes down to that eye test, like who's got the clutch gene, who's got, who's able to have those epic comebacks, who's able to play very well at the highest level under extreme pressure, at the most pressure you could possibly get as a pro player. And Flash, I believe, is that guy. Now let's move over to StarCraft 2. When I'm looking at StarCraft 2 and the history of StarCraft 2, there's 4 guys that I look at that are the greatest ever. I'm looking at Serral, Life, SOS, and Dark. Those 4 are incredible players, right? And these guys have won championships. They've won, multiple tournaments and things of that nature. But the big one, which is obviously BlizzCon, all of these guys have won once. SOS has won twice. And when I look at all 4 of them, I've always said Life was the greatest StarCraft 2 player ever. But the match-fixing scandal, which he was involved in, certainly, in my opinion, it almost took him out of the conversation. Because if you are, cheating or, doing something that you're not allowed to be doing, something illegal in the esport, it's going to tarnish your legacy forever. We look at actual traditional sports, and the same can be said there. We can look at tons of different teams and things that happen. Like recently with the Houston Astros, I think that their legacies are going to be hurt for a long time, or probably forever. At least that 2017 team. The New England Patriots, how many times they've been caught cheating and doing very suspicious, malpractices and things of that nature. That is going to tarnish those guys' legacy, whether we want to believe it or not. And his legacy has been tarnished forever because we'll never know his full potential or longevity of like where he could have been in StarCraft 2, or he could still be doing at this very point. He was the greatest I had ever seen in that stretch of time, making it to 2 BlizzCon finals and winning one of them, and then of course losing the other. But I gotta say, guys, it's very close between those 4. It's very close. And I think that we don't have a clear winner at this point, because Cyril and Dark are still playing at this point, and they're still vying to see where they're at. Like, who's better? They're kind of fighting for the greatest of all time in StarCraft 2. So it comes down to, guys, is when you look at all of the players within StarCraft Brood War, and StarCraft 2, and all the expansions and all of that, to me, the greatest ever is Flash. He is the greatest StarCraft player at this point of all time. He's the guy, he set the bar, and now everyone else is trying to chase after him. Now, I think before you can catch Flash, you've got to catch Life, or you've got to catch SOS. So I think like Cyril and Dark, those guys who are still playing, they need to catch SOS. They got to get 2 championships. And then after that, one of those guys will be considered the greatest. And then from that point, the greatest of StarCraft 2. And then you can kind of move forward in trying to catch Flash. Which Flash, Jadon, and Boxer, they've put together a resume that is pretty unmatched. It's pretty hard to see someone else catching up to those guys anytime soon. But Cyril is on a great track right now with how early in his career he is. It reminds me of Life, as far as not obviously with any kind of scandals, but from the standpoint of how good he is at such a young age, and seeing him progress. Who knows where Cyril's going to be if he just keeps going? Man, it could be absolutely remarkable. It could be incredibly, it could be unbelievable, guys, where Cyril could end up as far as championships are concerned. And obviously, though, it's the big one. It's the Super Bowl of StarCraft is what you have to look at. That being IM Katowice now in 2021, which is what all of those guys are going to be chasing after and trying to get and win. But I would love to hear from all of you. What's your list of the greatest players of all time in StarCraft and then in StarCraft 2? And then who do you think is the greatest ever? My guy is Flash at this point, and I'm sure I'll probably update this list over time. Might even update it later on this year, depending. But this has been my list now for a while. And I've always thought of, Flash, Boxer, Jadong. I mean, those guys are just unbelievable players. And then you got the big 3 in StarCraft 2, that being, Cyril, Life, and Dark. And then SOS is kind of, obviously won more championships, which you have to put that somewhere. Even though I don't think SOS was quite as good of a player as any 3 of those, Life or Dark or Cyril. I don't think he was quite as good, or he didn't have, quite the longevity, I didn't feel. But he still was incredible and one of the greatest ever in StarCraft 2, and there's no debating that. So I'm going to pass the question on to you guys. What do you guys think? Who is the greatest all-time in StarCraft and in StarCraft 2? And who would you take as far as the greatest ever that StarCraft has to offer in the esports realm? Let me know what you guys think. I would love to have a conversation about it.